Welcome to Paint Radio with your hosts, Andrew Dwyer and Kevin Hoffman.
Paint Radio, the APC podcast, Andrew Dwyer, Kevin Hoffman, from your favorite media brand, APC, American Painting Contractor. By the way, yes, we are American, but there are no borders around APC. Everyone is welcome. Everyone is invited. Even, wait for it, who am I about to insult? Even Canadians. Yes, even Canadians. We don't mind. No, come on. I kid because I care. Keep your double chin up, Canadians. We love that you're part of APC. It's okay that you're Canadian. Would you agree, Kevin, that American Painting Contractor may initiate from the US of A, but we broadcast throughout the world?
Absolutely. I've got some very good friends who are Canadian, and I've met some great painters from Canada at the event. So happy to have you.
You know, we probably should investigate whatever sort of adapter we need to boost the signal into the universe. Surely that can be done.
I mean, do they paint on other planets? I don't know.
Maybe they found maybe they live in a post-paint world, in which case we don't even want to know about that, do we?
No, I would like to keep the world I have.
So it could be a good warning for what our listeners need to know and see coming. But I don't know. We've opened up a lot of questions. Fortunately, we have someone on the show today who may not be able to answer that question. But, man, can he answer many questions? He's been answering so many wonderful questions in the painting industry for so many years. Daniel Honan, founder of Profitable Painter CPA. You may know them formerly as Bookkeeping for Painters, now known as Profitable Painter CPA. Daniel Honan, welcome back to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
We will not saddle you with any other worldly questions. We'll stick to your wheelhouse, which is big and broad, dealing with numbers and profitability. And so, yeah, you're now Profitable Painter CPA, profitablepaintercpa.com, and you have a new book out. I think it just came out in the last week or two. Congratulations. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, Profitable Painter. It's 3 frameworks to scale your business to $3 million plus that everything I've learned about helping painting businesses scale their business over the last 9.5 years, working with over 400 painting businesses, doing thousands of one-on-one consultations, boiled it down into 269 pages in this book to basically help folks identify the bottlenecks in their business so that they can grow. And then how do they scale their business profitably with sufficient cash flow? And then how do they protect that wealth, from bad actors, the IRS, and pass that wealth on to their loved ones?
Bad actors, comma, the IRS, not bad actors, dash, the IRS. Yes?
Yeah, I think, that's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Comma, the IRS. So,
punctuation matters. So, Daniel, let's dive in. In your massive marketing machinery leading up to the book release, among many things I saw, all of which were excellent, you had a fabulous Facebook video. And one thing you talked about this, I love, again, you got to know your numbers. There's so many numbers. The devil's in the details. All of these cliches matter and apply. But you talked about one sign that you won't grow, you won't scale beyond 3 million or wherever you're going. You said if your gross profit to customer acquisition cost is less than 3 to 1. I'm not a numbers guy. I'm a words guy. Does that basically say you've got a marketing problem, or what are the devils in those details?
Yeah, a lot of details on that one. It's a great ratio. It kind of encapsulates a lot of information in one number, or one ratio, which is why I like it, because you can kind of easily, just knowing that one ratio, get a lot of information, very compact. It could indicate that you're not pricing correctly. It could indicate that your sales process is not efficient. It could indicate that your crews aren't efficient. It's a lot of things that go into that. But basically, to break it down further, is gross profit is the first part of the ratio, right? Gross profit is what's left over after the job, after paying for paint and painters. So that's your gross profit. And then the other part of the ratio is your customer acquisition cost. This is basically, what do you have to spend to close a deal? So this is the marketing costs and what you pay your sales team. So the ratio between the two things at a minimum should be 3-to-1, and this should allow for enough money to cover the other overhead costs and the in your profitability. And the reason why we're using gross profit to customer acquisition costs is because the biggest cost to your business is producing the work, right? Paying your painters in for the paint. And usually the second biggest is acquiring the customer. So how much you spend on marketing in your sales team. And so knowing the ratio between the two things can give you an indication of, are you set up for profits, basically?
Quick follow-up. So I have to think the vast majority of painting contractors, they know what their gross profit is, and if they don't, they can figure it out relatively easily. When your new clients come on board, how many of them know what their customer acquisition cost is?
I think most people know their marketing spend, and they, if they're the salesperson, they might not think about how much they're paying their salesperson because they're the salesperson. But if they have a salesperson, they probably know so they might know the numbers roughly in some cases, but the relationship is maybe what most people don't know, or they don't think about. They don't think about the relationship between gross profit and customer acquisition costs. And the reason why it's important is because, let's take an example. Let's say that you have a painting business that has a 45% gross profit, so which is decent. That's a pretty decent gross profit margin. And then you're spending, let's say, 10% on marketing. And then you also have a salesperson that you're paying a 10% additional on top of closing the deal. So that's basically, in this example, you have 45% gross profit and a 20% customer acquisition. So that ratio is 2.5-to-1. So that is not great, right? Because we want that 3-to-1 on a minimum. And but any one piece of data point might look good. Like gross profit 45, that looks pretty good. 10% for marketing spend, it's on the higher end, but it's not atypical. Paying 10% for a salesperson is on the higher end, but it's not atypical. But when you put it all together, now we have a 2.5-to-1 ratio. That painting business is probably suffering with profitability, but it wouldn't be clear unless you put it all together, like in that ratio. And so that's kind of what I think is missing, is that people might know their one-off numbers. They might know gross profit, they might know the marketing, it might know that what they're paying their salesperson, but they might not know the relationship and how it's impacting their overall profitability.
Today's podcast is brought to you by Behr Paint and Kills Primer, now available exclusively at the Home Depot. That means you can get top quality Behr Paint and Kills Primer at an everyday low price from one trusted partner. This partnership is designed to give pro painters more value, better service, and quality products with the durability you deserve from start to finish. And yes, that means you can get both Behr and Kills Primer products delivered same day, next day, whatever day you need, straight to your job site, free of charge. Some limitations apply. Go to behr.com/pro to connect with a dedicated rep who will help take care of your needs and save time on your next job. You're getting the inside scoop here at APC. If you're a pro, you know.
So this is maybe a simpler question. I want to talk about cash because that's what a lot of us are in business for. And they say, that you got to have your money working for you, but then again, you have to have enough cash when the times go down and you need some protection. So how should a painting business think about cash? Like, is it a proportional thing of how much they should be keeping on hand, or how should I think about that?
Yeah, great question. So cash, the first thing that I look at when I'm working with someone new or just anyone generally is I look at how much cash they have in the bank compared to what their overhead costs are. Because if overhead costs are basically those costs that you have to keep the business doors open, right? Those things you have to spend money on, like insurance, office supplies, paying for your office person salary, all that overhead stuff. So I look at their cash balance and see if there's at least 2 months of overhead costs as cash. So said another way, let's say your overhead spend per month is $10,000. I would want that business to have at least $20,000 in cash in the bank at any point in time, because that's 2 months of overhead costs as cash. Now, if they do not have at least 2 months of overhead costs as cash, that's telling me they probably have too low of cash in the business, and that's going to prevent them from really growing if that's their goal, to grow the business, because they won't have much additional money to spend on marketing or to spend on hiring. So, and then there's a bunch of things you can do to improve that situation. But that's what I would look at, is how much cash you have on hand compared to your overhead costs. If it's not at least 2 to 1, then we need to look at what you're doing, what your cash policies are, how you're managing your cash, and see if we can increase that cash balance to higher.
So in that case, on that topic, what would a bad cash policy look like that would lead a contractor to not have 2 months of cash in the bank, or enough cash in the bank to cover 2 months of overhead? Yeah,
great question. This is very, very common, where folks, they don't have the right policies in their business to grow, and they often, because there's really 3 things that prevent people from growing. Either you don't have enough customers, right? You don't have enough customers. You don't have enough of a team to produce the work that you have, meaning maybe you're booked out for months. That's the second thing. And then the third thing is policies that are holding you back, which is the most common problem, but it's also the least known about or thought about, because I think most people understand, oh yeah, I don't have enough customers, that's why I'm not growing, or I need more painters because I have all this work, but I don't have enough painters to do it, and I'm really booked out. Those are pretty straightforward, but which is often hidden is your policies, which a big one is cash policies. So some examples of bad cash policies would be not taking a deposit when you book the job. Just saying no down payment. You just pay at the end of the job. Now, there might be some cases where you have to do that, but if that's just your blanket general rule, probably not the best, especially if you're suffering from bad low cash balance. Another example might be, actually, I just worked with a painting business a few weeks ago. They were a really big fan of Dave Ramsey, which I also like, but they were using Dave Ramsey's kind of philosophy to run their business, and so they didn't have any kind of line of credit with Sherwin-Williams, no business credit card. They were just running strictly off the cash in the bank account, but they were also prepaying for materials. So they booked the job, then they would buy the materials right away with cash from Sherwin-Williams to have it on hand, because they wanted to make sure that they had it and they were a good steward of the money. So it was all coming from a good place. But because of all the stuff they were doing, like paying cash for the materials immediately, not leveraging the Sherwin-Williams credit line, not having a business credit card, they didn't have any cash in the bank. So just those were some examples of some bad cash policies that were just really preventing them from growing their business, because they were thinking that they needed to run their business to make Dave Ramsey happy, which I don't think Dave Ramsey's audience is business owners. It's more like personal side stuff. So, it's just a misapplication of that, I think.
A great illustration of good intentions that are poorly implemented.
Yeah.
And debt debt is a resource, and it can be implemented well, and it can be implemented poorly. And so, yeah, you want to do it well, not poorly. So, talking about debt, it's another thing you talk about, that's something that's going to hold you back, hold your business back from growing, is too much debt. And so, and by the way, I want to say that what makes you great, Daniel, multiple things, but one of the things is, any accountant can sort of point out a problem, but man, you also provide potential solutions. And that's why you're on the Paint Radio podcast, man. That's why you have your own book. So, too much debt. Where, what does that look like? Where do contractors tend to rack up debt where they shouldn't? What's good debt? What's bad debt?
Yeah, good question. So, we just talked about the painting business owner that didn't want to use it, like he didn't want to touch that at all. But then the most common case is the opposite, where people go way overboard on taking on too much debt. And it's not just using your Sherwin-Williams credit line or just using a credit card. It's like taking out lines of credit at the bank or bank loans or AR financing, factoring to basically patch holes in their profitability. Because the core, oftentimes when folks are really racking up too much debt, is the underlying problem is that they're not profitable, but they need cash to keep going. Because the one thing you need in your business to keep going is cash. Like everything else you don't need, but the one thing you can't go without is cash. You always have to have cash. So ideally, you're mostly getting that from your customers, from profits. But if you're not, then some people go to debt to basically patch the holes in the profitability. And so they'll just take out a massive amount of loans. And there's some cases where you will need loans or lines of credit for especially commercial work. If you have really bad payment schedules with a general contractor and you have to do all the work up front and don't get paid for 30, 60, 90 days afterwards, you might need a line of credit or something like that. But you have to be really careful that you're not taking out the debt to keep the business going just because your business is not profitable, right? We don't want to use debt as a replacement for profit. So that is the thing to stay away from. You definitely leverage debt, like you mentioned, to help with cash flow. And there's certain times to use it for sure. It's a tool, like you mentioned, but we don't want to just be using it to plug holes in a sinking profit ship.
It reminds me of that old saying, when the tide goes out, you see who's swimming naked.
Yeah.
And I think there's some people that think that we're entering a period like that, where there may be slower growth, there may be some more challenging economic conditions. So if painting contractors are looking at this year and seeing how it's different than perhaps last year, how do they evaluate that? I mean, is it exposing a fundamental problem that just they didn't see because there was money everywhere, or is it they have to adjust to the new market circumstances, or just accept that the tides go up and down? Like, so how would you say that painting contractors should be viewing this year?
Well, I think we work with a couple hundred painting businesses right now, and we can see the trends through the year. And some folks say it's down, some people say it's no change, and I think it really comes down to, it doesn't really change what your behavior should be in your business. Outside of, there was a nuclear reactor that went off in my town and now everyone's leaving. Like, okay, probably you need to move your business to a different, but like outside of something like that, it most of the time for most people, it really just comes down to focusing on what you need to do better to outperform the people in your local area. Making sure you're pricing right, have a compelling sales process, making sure you have good operations, you're managing your cash correctly. Like all the things that you would normally do, you just need to do that still and do it better than the folks that are around you. So I don't think it really changes what people need to do, generally speaking.
Daniel, let's sort of dive into some of the the key points of your book. You talk about, one thing you talk about is a gaps framework. You talk about using your numbers to break through revenue ceilings. Tell us about the GAPS framework. I assume GAPS is a delightful acronym. What does GAPS stand for?
Yeah. So this framework is for helping you identify and solve the main bottleneck in your business. So this is based off theory of constraints. Basically, the idea is there's only one thing right now that's holding you back in your business. And from what I've seen, it's one of three things. And I mentioned it earlier, but the acronym stands for G for generating customers, A for aligning labor with demand. Basically, do you have enough of a team to do the work that you have? And then the P stands for policy or behavior constraint or bottleneck. And then the S is scale to the next constraint. So basically, do you have enough customers coming in? Is that holding you back? Do you have enough of a team to do the work that you have booked? Or three, do you have policies that are holding you back because you're not handling your cash correctly, or you're pricing correctly, or you're overcompensating your team? And then the S is basically, once you fix that, one of those bottlenecks, once you identify and fix, it's just scale to the next constraint. So, because there's always going to be another bottleneck that comes once you fix one thing, the next thing will come up.
So you're going to need a contractor. I mean, that sounds awesome, but it also kind of sounds like a surgeon saying, well, what we want to do is just sort of clip this nerve and sort of tie it to this other nerve, and that'll fix the arterial blockage and you'll be good to go. How the hell do you do that? So I assume this is where you need a good CFO. You need a great advisor who can walk you through the process. Or am I wrong? Tell me I'm wrong, Daniel.
Yeah. So the book basically walks you through the different symptoms of each bottleneck. Like what does it look like when you aren't able to generate enough customers? Maybe you have a low lead flow, or you have really low conversion rates, right? So that could be an indicator that you have that bottleneck. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean that is the case, because then you have to go down to the other two, right, and evaluate those before you jump to the conclusion. Because a lot of people jump to the conclusion, oh yeah, I need more customers. I just worked with a painting business owner, and I asked him, what do you think is holding you back in your business right now? And he said, and he was at $500,000 per year for the last couple of years. So he was hitting that ceiling at 500K. And he said, well, I think I just need more customers. Once I get some more customers, I'm pretty sure we can hit, $750,000 or $800,000 this year. But he said that, but then we looked at his cash balance, and he only had a couple $1,000s in cash. So that him getting more customers actually was not the constraint. He didn't have enough money to actually go and turn up the marketing to get more customers. So his constraint in his business was actually P for policy or behavior constraint. So, because he didn't have 2 months of overhead costs as cash. He had some bad cash policies, some bad pricing policies that were not allowing for enough cash to come in the business, so that he used that money to then put in towards the marketing to get more customers. So, looking at each of those symptoms for each of the bottlenecks, and then identifying, okay, I have some symptoms of maybe two of them, but really I need to focus on this one first. And once you identify the issue, then the book also recommends some recommendations on how to improve, like your cash position. For example, we talked about a couple of them already, or how to approach improving getting more customers, which is starting with your sales process, looking at the numbers in your sales process, because your sales process is made up of three key numbers, your set rate, show rate, and close rate. And each of those rates have benchmarks in the painting industry, depending on the marketing source that you have. So taking your numbers and comparing those to the benchmark and identifying, okay, is my sales process holding me back? Maybe I have enough leads, but I'm just not closing enough of them. And so comparing those benchmarks against that, and going to the next step. If you do have a good sales process, it's going down the line to address and fix each of those constraints. So that's what the book tries to do, help you identify the issue and then the steps to solve it.
So that's the gaps framework. I know you also have a scale framework. Maybe you could talk about how does that relate to the gaps framework? Is it a totally separate thing? Are they intermingled? And how you should use them differently?
Right. So gaps is to figure out what do you need to do and focus on right now to grow your business. Helps you identify what it is and what you need to fix and how to fix it. The scale framework is just what do you need to be doing all the time to make sure your business is profitable and have enough cash to scale profitably and healthily. So the scale framework, it talks about securing profitability, controlling your cash flow, avoid over leveraging your customer dollars, and then executing with confidence, which is basically making sure you get paid what you should be paid based off the rules in your business. So it kind of gives you the financial framework of what you should be looking for in your financials so that you know that you're scaling profitably in your business.
And then last but not least, perhaps the one I can most relate to because it's simple, and I'm a simple guy, Daniel, is the BUT framework, the cover your butt framework. Protect yourself, your family, and your business. And here it is in writing from bad actors and the IRS. Very nice of you to not make it clear that the IRS, by the way, my dad worked for the IRS for 40 years. And so, I've got a bit of a soft spot. I get a little defensive when people attack the IRS because they're just people doing their best. So, but I won't go down that rabbit hole talking about my dad. I'm just going to start crying. So, what does that mean? Cover your butt framework, protect yourself and your family and your business.
Yeah. So the idea here is we're looking at more, you've hit some level of success and you want to make sure that you're protected. So the B stands for build to sell. So some folks are going into their business to actually sell at some point. And some people, they want to keep it forever, but it's still helpful to know how much your business is worth, because if it's worth more money to someone else, it's also worth more money to you as the business owner. So that chapter just goes through how to value your business, what are the key levers to increase the value, and then how to actually calculate the value of your business as if a private equity firm was evaluating it. So looking at your EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization, and assigning a multiple, and then adding multiples based off of other metrics to get like, this is how much my business is worth. This is how much a private equity firm would give me with cash down, and I could walk away with no extended, consulting requirements or seller financing or anything. Value. So that's the B for build to sell. And then the U is undiscoverable assets, or untouchable assets, untouchable assets. And this is all about protecting yourself, because as you grow, as your business grows and your wealth grows, you become more of a target. And so what you want to do is to make yourself less of a target, because you don't want yourself to become a bigger target as you grow. And the whole thing with this is to make yourself less visible to bad actors, basically. So what you can do, one of the tactics is to set up something like a revocable living trust, and then put your assets under your revocable living trust. And so when somebody looks and says, oh, ABC Painting, wow, I see their trucks everywhere in town. Looks like they're doing really great. I wonder if I can find out who owns that company to target them, or start a liability suit or something like that, because there's people out there like that, unfortunately. But if you can add a layer of privacy by putting your revocable living trust as the owner of the business, now people don't know that you own the business, and so you're less visible. The same thing with your house. Maybe you have a mansion on the hill because of all the profits that you earned from your painting business, and the deed of the house is publicly listed, so people could easily find out, oh, okay, John Smith owns that mansion over there. Okay, so now I know who to target to get some money. But if you put your house titled under a revocable living trust, now it's harder to understand who owns that house. So that is that whole chapter. And then there's taxes, which obviously taxes are a huge expense. If you hit any level of success in your business, the biggest expense you're going to have is taxes. And so understanding, we use 12 tax strategies. I mean, there's hundreds of tax strategies, but there's 12 core ones that we find over and over again for painting businesses that we look at them to get an ROI for them for tax planning as quick as possible. And so in the book, we go through 12 tax strategies that most painting business owners can benefit from and implement immediately to get a return on investment. And then the other T is transfer wealth wisely. This is all about how do you actually give your family, set your family up for success after you pass away, because we don't want to think about this, but we got to think about it, called estate planning. Basically making sure we are prepared for when we pass on so that our family doesn't have to, they're going to have to deal with the pain of you passing away, but you don't want to also leave them with a bunch of paperwork and headache on your estate. So this is all about how to set yourself up for success for when that happens and to make it easier for your family.
Well, dang, Daniel, I don't know how you got all that into 296 pages. That's dense in a good way. So I have to ask, I mean, I don't have your book yet. I'm going to see you next week at PCA's residential conference, where you will be a speaker and I will simply be the lowly MC/master of ceremonies. But I'm hoping, maybe I could get a copy of the book when you're down there. Maybe you might sign it. I don't know. But do you suggest people just dive in and read this whole book, or take it bit by bit, read the whole thing and maybe mark a few areas where they think, boy, I really need help with these 3 areas? How does somebody digest a tome like that?
Great question. So I asked a similar question in the book launch. Most folks want to know how to identify what's holding them back in their business. So most folks want to start with the GAPS framework because they feel like they're hitting a ceiling and they don't know how to solve it. But maybe you're in a different situation. Maybe you feel like you have a pretty good setup already, and you're really just more concerned about taxes and protecting yourself. And so maybe cover your butt framework would be a better fit. Or maybe you feel like you have those handled, but you just want to know what are the metrics that I should be hitting on a day-to-day basis. And the scale framework might do that. But for anybody who wants the book, I'm actually, for listeners, you can get it for free. Just cover the shipping. If you go to profitablepaintercpa.com/book, you can actually grab a free copy, paperback copy of the book. You just got to cover the shipping. It's like $7 in most areas, depending on where you live in the United States. So profitablepaintercpa.com/book, and you can get a paperback copy. But it also comes with an audiobook and an ebook, because if you're anything like me, I like to listen to my books when I'm at the gym. So I wanted to make sure everyone had easy access to the information. So you're going to get the ebook and the audiobook versions. If you sign up for the paperback version, you'll get an email with that. And then also you get the e-course, which goes through the different frameworks in a video format, because I know I like YouTube, to get get it set in a different way and to show you the same information, just position in a different way. So you also get access to that e-course that goes through that in a video format. And then also you'll get access to the ChatGPT AI, Profitable Painter AI, which is trained on the book and all the benchmark data that we've collected over the last 9.5 years, and all the tools that we use. So you can actually get instant feedback. And if you feel like you're hitting a bottleneck in your business, you're not sure, you can use the AI, Profitable Painter AI to help you evaluate that. And then additionally, you get access to all the tools and templates that we've developed over the last 9 years to include a business valuation calculator, job costing template, and a whole bunch more. But if you go to profitablepaintercpa.com/book, you'll get the paperback sent to you, just cover the shipping, and then ebook, audiobook, AI advisor, and all the tools and templates in the e-course as well.
That's awesome, man. That's I think of all those options, I would choose the audiobook with the follow along accompanying picture book, because that's, that really helps me to have a picture book that I can follow along with. Do you agree, Kevin?
Yeah, I actually really like the idea of a digital Daniel, and maybe we could just put that on the podcast next time, and Daniel could just take the day off.
You can ask him questions.
Yeah, I see. We've got a Daniel chatbot. What do we need the original for now?
Yeah, exactly.
And since we're now, broadcasting into the universe, somebody out there, let's not call them aliens. Let's not label them. They're future friends. It's really what they are. They could tell us how to digitize in all the best ways. Daniel Honan. Daniel, thanks for coming on the show, man. You're the best. You're a wealth of knowledge. Thank you for sharing.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Super excited to join you guys. And it's always a pleasure.
Indeed it is. So again, Daniel Honan, founder of Profitable Painter CPA. If you have that bookmarked on your laptop as bookkeeping for painters, that will still work. However, you might want to update it to profitablepaintercpa.com. And of course, our website, paintmag.com. And I've said this before, but it bears repeating because I love it. A key to all of this, availing yourself of these resources, it begins with you. It begins with all of us having the confidence to have humility, the confidence to say, something's not working here. I'm missing something. There's got to be a better way. I don't have the answer, but man, I'm willing to put in the time and work for it. That is you got to have the courage to be humble, to see where you're falling short. There's people out there and there's resources out there to help. One of them, of course, paintmag.com. We love what you're doing, and we know you can do it even better. So that's why we're here to help. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you're in San Antonio, look for us because all three of us will be there. See you then.